We actually showed up with the police. He wasn't there. We moved all this stuff out of the house, put it into storage. When the guy got home that night, he called the police. He said somebody broke into my house. In the meantime, he's the one that broke in there. The police said, come down tomorrow at noon. We'll file a report. He went down. They arrested him.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome to The Closing Table. I am your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. And joining us on this episode, very excited to talk to her and get some real estate knowledge, specifically in her market. We want to welcome Libby Sosinski to The Closing Table. How are you, Libby?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Thank you so much taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us and accepting our invitation to be on The Closing Table. Just want to say that first and foremost. So we want to talk about real estate. That's why we're here. But before we even do that, I don't want to bypass the person on the other end of the closing table. So I want to get to know you a little bit more, Libby. If you can, in 60 seconds or less, tell us who you are outside of real estate.
I'm a doggy mom and a kitty mom. I have 6 animals, 6 dogs, and 4 cats, and 4 of the dogs are handicapped. So it takes a lot of my time to manage them. I have 4 Yorkies, 2 are blind, 1 is crippled, and 1 is diabetic. So that takes a lot of my time up, making sure they have shots, making sure, like, you can't just put them outside. You have to go out with them, maintaining my babies.
Yes. Heart of gold with that being said. I love to hear that right there. I might ask you a little bit more about that later, but okay, interesting. Let's talk about where you are now, your market. I want you to describe the market that you currently serve, and this is a 2-part question. Describe it geographically, so give as much detailed information for someone who may have never been to your market, notable landmarks, attractions, things to do. Then get into some of the economics, statistical data, average price points, time on the market, things of that nature, please.
So I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I think Steelers would be a good word to describe my market.
That's right.
Yeah, everybody knows who the Steelers are. We're very, very big on sports here. We also have the Penguins, so hockey and football. And as far as our market economically, I think our average price point has increased over the past couple years. It was, I think, $225 a couple years ago, and it's up to $295 now, which is a big difference from a couple years ago. So, yeah, it's a great market. It's a unique market. We're not really, people get mad at me when I say this, but we're not really square footage based. A lot of markets are, okay, it's this price per square foot. Something that really sells in Pittsburgh is charm. So you could have a smaller house next to a bigger house, and that smaller house has charm and character. You're going to have an easier time selling that property than you are the house next door. So there's a lot of weight based on charm in Pittsburgh.
Interesting. I've heard a few different things, different perspectives about the Pittsburgh market. We had a few agents on here from that area. So, but I haven't heard that one. The crazy thing is, I think I've asked them, or maybe it's, it was mentioned about the square footage, but I've never got a straight answer from them about that. So you putting that into perspective lets me know that's the reason why it wasn't addressed, because it's pretty much not a concern pretty much in that market. Interesting.
No. It's a very, very unique market. Actually, our MLS didn't even have square footage in it until a couple years ago.
Really?
Yeah, that's a recent addition to our multi-list, which is very strange, because the rest of the country is, how much is it per square foot? And investors come in and they're like, oh, this is a great house. I can get it for a great price. And I'm going, no, don't buy that house, because you're paying too much. And they don't get it because it looks like it's a great deal per square foot. But it's not going to sell. So it's a tough market. If you're not from here, learning it would be difficult.
Get it. I get it. Yeah, respect the market. I get it.
Yes.
Respect the market. Okay, cool. Let's talk about you going through your experience in your career, more specifically, probably generating leads. Do you have any stories that you can share of an untraditional way that you obtained a client or a lead to a client? Maybe you're wearing a jacket with your logo on it, or you have some type of, mark on your car and someone stopped you and asked you about the business. Talk about a way that you got a client you didn't expect.
I've done this a few times. I love to go to garage sales and estate sales,
Mm-hmm.
and especially the estate sales. I always say, what are you going to do with the house? And I've gotten several listings from going to estate sales and giving the owners my card. So that's worked for
Interesting.
me numerous times. I'm in a little bit of a different end of the business, so I don't go out and do this very often because I sell REO, foreclosures, bank-owned properties. So
Mm-hmm.
my listings they're client-based
Mm-hmm.
versus, having to generate it all the time. So I have bank clients for the most part, but I have done estate sale listings for people. I also have investors who do flips and stuff like that.
Okay, okay. So you say you real estate owned properties. I want to talk about that. Not right now. We're definitely going to talk about that a little bit more because I'm interested about it. But how about a property that you've come across that has some type of fascinating history or unusual background? I know in the Pittsburgh area, it's a lot of older homes. Have you had one of those on your list where you had to, get that marketed? And how did you leverage this intriguing aspect to generate interest from potential buyers?
I've had some properties that have had murders in them. We don't have to
Wow.
disclose in Pennsylvania. So if somebody doesn't know the history, they're probably not going to know, but the neighbors always make sure they know.
That's a
So,
good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one assignment where it was probably 3 years after, and basically the entire house was the same as the last night that the guy was there. He murdered his wife, and yeah, it was all there. It was all there. Yeah, kind of
Whoa.
creepy. Kind of creepy.
That's the crazy thing too. You made a solid point. Even if like maybe the agents or the owners don't tell you about it, the neighbors were there and they'll probably tell you for sure.
Oh, they
That
come
is a
running
solid point. Yeah.
outside. Did you know what happened here?
Hey, you know what
So,
happened
yeah,
here, right?
I don't have to worry about it because the neighbors, they see somebody at that house, they're in.
That is hilarious. That is true though. It's
It
funny
is.
because it's true.
Yes, it is 100% true.
Okay. So I want to talk about those REOs that you mentioned before because you say that's what you do. I mean, your impressive rankings and accolades in real estate reflect your commitment and expertise. But could you recount a particularly challenging real estate deal that you've handled, whether it was one of those REOs or a non-REO transaction, and talk about how you navigated through it?
So, a couple years ago, I had a high-end listing. It was 750,000. It was in an area called Fox Chapel.
Hmm.
And I was doing my weekly inspections, swing by the house, make sure everything's okay. We were
Hmm.
under contract. So I get there and my sign's down, which it happens once in a while. So I didn't think anything of that. I get to the front door, my lockbox isn't there. And I looked inside and I could see furniture. So I called the buyer's agent. My first call was to the buyer's agent to say, "Did your buyer move into the home?" No, no, not him. So called the police, and here it was a gentleman who felt because this land was in his family a long, long time ago that he was entitled to this property. So we had to evict him. We actually showed up with the police. He wasn't there. And we had movers and everything. We moved all this stuff out of the house and put it into storage. And then when the guy got home that night, he called the police. He said, "Somebody broke into my house." Right? So someone broke into my house. In the meantime, he's the one that broke in there. So the police said to him, come down tomorrow at noon. We'll file a report. Swear to God. And so he went down. They arrested him. I don't know what he thought was going to happen. Yeah. So in he walks, right, to report everything being stolen, and they arrested him, put him in jail, and literally for the past 3 years, every 4 or 5 months, I get subpoenaed. I have to go to court to testify about this whole thing. And every time I go down there, it gets postponed. This has been going on for 3 years now. So
Wow.
I take the dogs to the dog sitter, because you got to get up at like 5 in the morning to make sure you're down there. So make sure everybody's in their places. Get up, get ready, go down there, walk through all the stuff, sit down, and then the attorney comes over and says, "Oh, we're postponing." So it's 6 times so far that I've gone down there and still haven't testified.
What
So,
a situation.
Yeah.
First of all, that is a great clip. That's going to make a great clip. But wow, what did that guy think was going to happen?
He feels that he's entitled.
The audacity.
It's a different religion or something. I forget what it was called, but he feels that, he's entitled to anything that he wants, as long as he takes it. And, there's a $750,000 bank-owned foreclosure sitting there vacant. Nobody's there. And I think he thought he could get away with it, at least longer than he did. But I think he didn't realize that we check on it quite frequently. So,
and you know what? That's a good point, too, because when I think about it, some people do get away with that because squatter rights are real. Squatter rights are real.
They're
adverse
terrible.
possession. So I could see that. If he was there long enough and you hadn't checked on that property, that could have been his property.
Could have been a huge problem. Yeah. So no, we were lucky that we had the support of the Fox Chapel police. That was a big deal. Had they pushed us off to the court system, it would have been years to get him out of there.
Oh man, Libby, what a story. What a story. That was good. That was good. All right, so let's focus a little bit more on REO, real estate owned property. Can you talk about how you ended up focusing on this special type of niche, and what are REOs exactly?
So REOs, real estate owned, you've already used that term, bank owned foreclosures. And years and years ago, I started, I got my real estate license. I started working at Keller Williams. Actually, it was with a different real estate company prior to going to Keller Williams. I was there for 3 months and I almost quit real estate. I was like, oh, this isn't for me. But had an opportunity to switch over to Keller Williams, so I did. And I was an assistant for a gentleman who did foreclosures and REOs. So I learned a lot from him. And then he got out of it. And so there was a lot of listings at that point that needed assigned. So they assigned some to me. The bank did. Gave me a chance. So, and because I had some familiarity, I was able to get through it, and they started giving me more and more and more. And so at that point, it just developed from 3 listings that came to me when he got out of the business, and now I have 20 to 25 different bank clients.
Interesting. So that's a completely different lane also, because you're getting listings from the banks, from the lenders, essentially, correct? Yes. You're not necessarily going out looking for sellers or buyers actively. You're working with that municipality or whatever. I'm sorry, the lender, I should say. So, okay.
The non-paid mortgages is so they go through sheriff's sale, and then I come in after that.
Interesting. So the thing about these real estate owned properties, right? They're usually priced lower than what the average home in that area will go for, but they also come with a lot of distress. So these homes aren't usually for the average first-time home buyers, correct? So you're working with what type of clients with these real estate owned properties?
So I have one client that I guess it was 2017. They actually bought all the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae foreclosures as a bulk. So they weren't foreclosures at that point. They were non-performing loans. So he
Okay.
bought all of them in a huge package. So, and he also paid a lot of money for them. So, what he did was decided to rent these properties out. So they were purchased at, however he did it. I don't know that part of it because I come in afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But they purchased all these non-performing loans. They did their own foreclosures, and then when the property came to the, foreclosure end, they fixed them up and rented them out. So
Mm.
right now I am marketing some properties that are unusually nice because they have been used as rental properties for the past 5 years and now they're liquidating. So
Mm.
typically, yes, on an REO situation, if they don't have money to pay their mortgage, why are they going to
Correct.
maintain the house?
Correct.
So the majority of the time, these are either, have to be FHA rehab loans, FHA 203Ks, or Fannie Mae home styles, which is the conventional,
Mm-hmm.
or cash. Obviously, cash is king. They always like cash.
Right. Of
But
course.
this current bulk that we're marketing are actually in financeable condition. So, but they're also going for retail prices. I mean, there's not much that needs done to them, and they're qualifying for loans. So, but this is
Interesting.
unusual. This is a new thing for me
Right.
because for 20 years I've been selling. I always call myself the shit queen of Pittsburgh because I got the crappy properties, but now I'm selling some really nice properties, and
Mm.
but they're still sold as is. No matter what, they're still sold as is.
Yep. That's the key
So,
thing about it too.
yep,
Okay, I got you.
yep. So
Yep.
if they do a inspection and they have a reply, we don't want to hear it. It's
S-
either terminate or continue.
Yep. So we're talking about uh, investors, investors with experience, investors with a lot of cash that are purchasing these REOs, doing the turning them around and turning them into rental properties and things like that.
Yes,
It's not the
yes.
I just want to put that out there. It's not the average buyer or seller on the market that's involved in those REOs. Even though you can be, it's generally not the case. So interesting. Love that. Can you talk about some of the earlier mistakes that you made in your career and what you've learned from them?
I made on my very first deal. I wrote the offer up. It was cash, and I asked for seller assist. I had no idea. I was like, "Do you want the seller to pay some of your closing costs?" He's like, "Hell yeah!" So I wrote it up with seller assist, and the listing agent called me and said, "Seller assist is for financing only." I said, "Oh." I'm
Hmm.
trying to act like I knew what I was doing,
Yeah, yeah,
So, but that was my very first deal. That was my
yeah,
very first deal. So, I mean, we all make mistakes throughout
yeah.
these deals. Sometimes I've been late replying to home inspections. Ugh, that's always the worst because it's your fault. And I've written contracts up incorrectly. I mean, we're all
Mm.
human. I call
Hmm.
myself a professional mistake fixer, is what I am. Not
Yeah,
only my mistakes, but every mistake that happens in real estate needs somebody to sweep behind it. And
correct.
that's what we do as realtors.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. And the thing about what you considered a mistake or a lesson learned from earlier, that wasn't even one of those mistakes that was real detrimental to the entire transaction. It wasn't a make or
no.
break situation. So I think you got off pretty easy with that because I've talked to some agents who've made mistakes where the entire transaction fell apart. So
Yeah, I
just
mean, and
learning
that
from that.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that happens, but no, I mean, I think the biggest mistake, and here's the other thing I want to say about mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Once you make it, you never make it again. That's it.
Right.
So, regretfully, a lot of this job is trial and error. And
Mm-hmm.
so when one of these mistakes happens, so for instance, we signed a contract, the bank did, with a written expiration date that had already passed. So when the buyer wanted out of the contract, he goes, well, this contract's no good anyways. And he was absolutely correct. It was no good. So you know what? Every time I look at a contract, I check that written expiration date. I've been doing that for years, and I will never lose a deal because of that again.
There you go.
So,
See?
and the mistakes are, you learn. That's it.
Yeah.
And it will never happen again.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we should love, as consumers dealing with agents like yourself, because there's so many different things that can happen, so many new things that you can learn from different transactions. You could you can have 20 years experience and then something new comes up, a new hurdle that you've never heard of. But as long as you learn from it and you never make that mistake again, it makes you a better professional. It makes you a better professional, and it gives you that ability to fix those problems ahead of time without your client even knowing what happened.
And I'm always accountable. I'm always accountable. I mean, my clients know that I'm a human being, and if something has happened, I just give it to them. This is what happened. I'm horrified that this happened, but we need to fix it. And most people are really understanding.
Yeah.
So I mean, I haven't had anything like lawsuit worthy, but nonetheless, when there's a mistake, we fix it.
Of course, like a professional would. Love to know
yes.
that. Knowing what you know now, in your market currently, all the resources that are available, if you were a first-time home buyer in your market today, what approach would you take to owning your first home?
Well, I wouldn't want to be a first-time home buyer in this market today, although it is slowing down a little bit. But I just finished working with clients. It took us almost a year and 6 houses that we lost before we finally got one, with all the multiple offer situations. And we were aggressive. We were bidding $30,000 over list. We were waiving inspections and just had a really hard time securing one. Finally got one, and we're closing next week. But I wouldn't want to be. I mean, what would I do? I would put it off. I would put it off until the market slowed down a little bit, because even with these crazy high interest rates, there's still not enough inventory out there for everybody. So if it's a good house, it's going to have multiple offers.
Ooh, bombshell. Great. Hey, great advice, though. Great advice coming from a professional, someone who knows the market themselves. So thank you for breaking that down, Libby, and thank you for pulling up a chair and being here at the closing table. We appreciate that. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell people how to reach out to you, please do so now.
I can be reached via email at liberated@aol.com, and that's 2 B's. It's a play on my name, liberated@aol.com. And my cell is 412-722-8344.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Libby. We appreciate you for being here. And for our YouTube audience watching right now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, do us both a favor. Hit the like button, please, and thank you. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, any other podcast platform, please do the same. Give us a like, a 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. Libby, I always like to leave our audience with a question before we leave, get their brains turning. So this is for you, audience. Have you or anyone you know ever purchased a real estate owned property? If so, what was your or their experience? Don't tell us now. Leave it in the comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.